welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and I think we are inching ever closer to the return of Launda, Ashton, and Orym, and I think I can predict where they are, and potentially what kind of guest we're going to see, and potentially what they're going to be trying to do while they're here. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first question is, where is Team B? And I think they're in Tal'Dorei, and they're in the pools of Wittabok. Based off the description that Matt gives, as Launda sort of comes to, and that she's surrounded by small pools and there's a sulfurous acidic smell. It's almost the exact same description that we get from Matt initially when we learn from or about the pools of Wittabok in campaign 1, where he describes a landscape with hill giants and pools that have some sort of poisonous effect to them. And I'm actually going to play a clip right now, 2 clips, where he describes both instances, one with Launda and then one in campaign 1.
Where are you off to?
The pools of Wittabok.
What brings you towards the pools of Wittabok?
You know this place?
It is a series of poisoned wells and hulking, stupid giants.
Kind of glance around as your vision comes to, and you see yourself kind of sitting on the edge of a rocky cliff almost. The smell that hits your nostrils is kind of sulfurous and acrid, acidic almost. It's hard to describe. You're unfamiliar with it. And you kind of look around you, and there are these pools of strange colored liquid under the shadow of night. Only the things in your close proximity you can make out with your predilection to experience the dark. But you're in an unfamiliar landscape. It seems terrestrial.
While the description is not perfectly the same, it is very close, and if you were to describe them to 2 different people in these ways, they'd come to the same conclusion about this sort of location, that it is an area filled with what appears to be poisonous pools or wells, and I truly believe that this is the location that they're in. They're in the pools of Wittabok. I also think that this is potentially close enough to still see Ruidus. We don't know exactly how far Ruidus is off the ground over Marquette right now, but it is way closer than Wildmount, and they're likely to see it way better than if the group in Wildmount could get on the highest mountain they could and look. I have a much better feeling that these guys could still see it, much like Matt describes it back in episode 51, that they see Ruidus off in the distance. I think this is a much closer location for them, so I do believe that this is likely where they are. So now that we know where they are, we gotta know what they are going to be doing now that they're here. So there's a couple options, and I'm going to be basing it off what the other group in Wildmount are doing, which is sort of diving deep into some character backstories that haven't been delved too deeply into quite yet. So, first and foremost, we could go up from the pools of Wittabok to Terra, which will sort of put us back into Orym's backstory, as that is an Ashari location, an Ashari city. So, very easily connection there. Potentially we could run into some of the people who survived the whole ordeal at the pit or the dig site, and potentially we could run into Lita. Maybe Keyleth is there. Who knows? But I think what would be more interesting would be to delve into more of Ashton's backstory. Now, we're on Tal'Dorei, and there are a handful of places that potential criminals would want to go to while in Tal'Dorei. And it's been a while since Ashton has seen any of the nobodies, so they could have taken themselves virtually anywhere. Craghammer might be a good spot, but they're also not too far away from Kymel. So what's interesting about Kymel is that's where EXU Kymel took place, and we know they have now fled there. So we could run into Dorian again as well, and I think it's very possible that we do run into Dorian and other members of the Crown Keepers. So I think that would be pretty interesting. We could potentially see Opal again. Maybe Fiora Rai went after her sister and she's off somewhere else, and Morgan went with her, and then we can have Amy Carrero and Robbie Damon come back and they meet up with the group. I think that'd be really cool, but I kind of want to go back to the Ashton thing, because not to mention, they're in Tal'Dorei, which is pretty close to Asilra, which is where Ashton is from. That is the continent in which he's from, and the Hishari people are from there as well. So I think they could easily make a quick stop at Craghammer, meet up with Dorian and Opal, and then hop over to Asilra, and then from there in Asilra, they can do a handful of things, check out the Hishari people, and then go to Vasselheim. Vasselheim, to me, would be the most interesting prospect for them to go to, because Vasselheim does have a stake in everything that's going on, as it's like the religious center of the world. So to go into Vasselheim and appeal to, hey, there's a God Eater out there now, we need to deal with this, would be a fairly cool and interesting story to me. What's nice about this setup is you actually don't need to run into Dorian and Opal for this to work. You can run into nobodies, and some of the nobodies can be the guest players who show up. Because I highly doubt we're going to only have 3 people sitting at the table. I think max we're going to hit 5. I don't think we're going to have another group of 6, because that would mean 3 guests, and I think that's a little much. I think if they go to Terra, we're only going to get one sort of backstory linked guest character, and that's going to be someone playing Lita. And then if we go to Crackhammer or anywhere else, like I mentioned, we could get Robbie and we could get Amy Carrero back for their characters, Dorian and Opal. Or we could run into somebody like the Nobodies and potentially have some nobody guests, and I think that would be fairly interesting as well. So from here, realistically, because Teldore is so close to Isilra and so close to so many other interesting locations, they could easily delve into the backstories of Orym, they could easily delve into the backstories of Ashton, and they could theoretically run into other Vox Machina members, which to me would be the least interesting thing for them to do, but I think it's possible. So with that being said, they could run into potentially Grog, Scanlan, anyone else we didn't see, maybe even, I highly doubt it because Terry is from Wildmount, but they could run into Terry somewhere. But I personally think it would be most interesting for them to run into the Nobodies or the Crown Keepers, and those would be the guests that we get for this section of time away from the Wildmount group. Because only 3 players, it's not happening. We're guaranteed to have at least 2 people show up to fill in some room on the table. So who they're going to be, we don't know. I would love it to be Robbie Damon and Amy Carrero so they could come back and play Opal and Dorian. But somebody else becoming a nobody would be really cool as well. And if we're only going to get one guest, somebody playing Lita would be really cool, because that way we can delve into more Orym backstory. And because of how like the sort of pattern worked over in Wildmount, with them looking into both Chetney and FCG, I would not doubt that they would be able to look into Ashton's backstory a bit and Orym's backstory a bit. But who knows? We have to wait and see still, and I'm very excited for the return of these characters and wherever they go. So there you have it, my sort of loose predictions, because there's no goddamn way I'm going to be able to predict accurately what they do while they're here. But I think these are some interesting sort of directions they can take them. So hopefully this happens, because I would love to see Robbie and Amy Carrera come back. I think that would be great. I think that would be a lot of fun. So yeah, simple as that. I like these directions. Potentially they go that way. If they're not even in the pools of Whitbach, I just look like an idiot now. But that's the point of making these videos, because it's fun. I still don't think I'm going to take as big an L on this that I took on the predicting the characters video. That was the biggest L I've ever taken, and I'm happy with it. So, with that being said, thanks for watching, and yeah, see you guys with the recap on Friday. Peace.